Something happened in Detroit this week that's flying under the radar. But trust me when I say this could be exactly the kind of move that changes our trajectory moving forward. What's up, Lions faithful? Welcome back to Lions News Fan Report, your home for everything Detroit Lions, where I bring you the latest breaking news, exclusive updates, and in-depth analysis on our beloved team. I'm here to give you the inside scoop on roster moves, strategic decisions, and everything happening in the Motor City as we push toward what we all hope will be a deep playoff run. Today I've got information that might seem small on the surface, but when you dig into the details, when you understand the context of where we are as a team right now and what we need to fix after that gut-wrenching loss to Minnesota, this move starts to make a whole lot of sense. I'm talking about a roster addition that addresses specific weaknesses we saw exposed on Sunday, a player who brings experience and versatility to a unit that desperately needs reinforcement, and a strategic decision by Dan Campbell and the front office that shows they're not sitting idle while problems persist. So stick with me through this entire breakdown, because by the end, you're going to understand exactly why this matters more than the headlines suggest, and why Lions fans should be paying close attention to how this impacts our chances moving forward. Let me set the stage for you by talking about where we are right now as a franchise. The Detroit Lions came into this season with massive expectations, legitimate Super Bowl aspirations, and a roster that many analysts considered one of the most talented in the entire NFC. We've got Jared Goff playing at an MVP level, we've got playmakers on offense like Amon-Ra St. Brown and David Montgomery, and we've got a defense that when clicking can shut down anybody. But that loss to the Vikings on Sunday, that 27-24 heartbreaker, exposed some real concerns that we need to address immediately if we're serious about making a championship run. The defense struggled in ways that were frankly unacceptable, especially considering we were coming off a bye week where the coaching staff had extra time to prepare and get the team ready. Dan Campbell himself took responsibility after the game, admitting that the Vikings caught us unprepared and that he didn't have the team ready to execute at the level we needed. That's the kind of accountability we love from our head coach, but it also highlights that adjustments need to be made. One area that really hurt us against Minnesota was special teams. The Vikings were able to make some key plays in that phase of the game that gave them momentum and field position advantages that ultimately contributed to their victory. When you're in a tight divisional race where every game matters, when you're fighting for playoff seeding and home field advantage, you cannot afford to give away points or field position on special teams. It's the hidden yardage that doesn't show up in the stat sheet but makes all the difference in close games. Dan Campbell specifically mentioned after the loss that special teams execution wasn't where it needed to be, and that's something the coaching staff is laser-focused on correcting as we head into this crucial stretch of the season. We've got a short-handed Washington Commanders team coming up next, a team that just lost their starting quarterback, Jaden Daniels, to an elbow injury, and we need to take full advantage of that opportunity to get back in the win column and reassert ourselves as legitimate contenders. Now here's where things get interesting, and this is what I've been building toward throughout this entire video. The Lions watched the NFL trade deadline pass on Tuesday without making any splashy additions to the roster. There were rumors swirling about potential moves, speculation about whether we'd go after a big-name defender or add depth at key positions. But when the deadline came and went, the Lions stood pat. Some fans were disappointed, some questioned whether the front office was being aggressive enough, and some wondered if we were missing an opportunity to address our weaknesses. But here's the thing, just because the Lions didn't make a trade doesn't mean they weren't active in improving the roster. In fact, the very next day, on Wednesday, the Lions made a move that directly addresses one of the issues I just talked about. The team announced that they signed linebacker Tai Summers to the active roster, promoting him from the practice squad and giving the defense and special teams unit a significant boost in depth and experience. Tai Summers is a name that Lions fans might recognize because he's actually been with the organization on and off throughout this season. The team originally had him on the active roster before releasing him in October and immediately signing him to the practice squad the following day. That kind of roster shuffling is common in the NFL as teams manage their 53-man limit and try to keep valuable players in the building even when they're not on the active game day roster. But now Summers is back on the active roster, filling a spot that opened when the team placed offensive lineman Christian Mahogany on injured reserve. This is a strategic move that shows the coaching staff values what Summers brings to the table and believes he can help address some of the issues we saw against Minnesota. Let me give you some background on Tai Summers so you understand what kind of player we're talking about here. He came into the NFL as a 7th-round pick of the Green Bay Packers back in 2019, so he's got 5 years of professional experience under his belt. He's appeared in 86 games during his career, which is substantial playing time for a guy who was drafted in the 7th round. Over that span, he's accumulated 90 career tackles, while playing mostly on special teams, which is exactly where the Lions need help right now. Summers has that versatility and experience in coverage units, in kick return and punt return defense, and in all the little details that make special teams effective. He's the kind of player who might not show up on the highlight reels, but does the dirty work that wins football games. Earlier this season, when he was on the active roster, Summers appeared in 3 games for the Lions and played 53% of the special team snaps without seeing any time on defense. That tells you exactly what his role is and where he provides value. The timing of this move is significant for a couple of reasons. First, it comes immediately after a loss where special teams execution was specifically called out as a problem area by the head coach. That's not a coincidence. Dan Campbell and the coaching staff identified a weakness, recognized that they needed more bodies and more experience in that phase of the game, and acted quickly to address it. Second, it comes right before we face a Washington team that's dealing with their own injury issues and might be vulnerable if we can execute properly in all 3 phases. This is the kind of game where special teams could be the difference maker, where field position and hidden yardage could determine the outcome, and having someone like Summers, who's played in 86 NFL games and knows how to do his job consistently, could be crucial. I also want to mention some other roster moves the Lions made this week because they provide context for how the team is managing the 53-man roster and making space for additions like Summers. The Lions released a pair of players who had been on injured reserve since the preseason, terminating the contracts of offensive tackle Justin Herron and tight end Kenny Yeboah. Both of these guys suffered injuries during the summer and had been stashed on IR while recovering. Yeboah in particular was interesting because he was expected to compete as the team's primary blocking tight end after signing as a free agent, but he injured his knee in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game and never got a chance to show what he could do. The team reached injury settlements with both players, which is standard practice when guys aren't going to be ready to contribute this season. These moves freed up roster spots and gave the Lions flexibility to bring in players like Summers who can help right now. Let me talk about what this means strategically for the Lions moving forward. Dan Campbell has built this team on a foundation of toughness, physicality, and attention to detail in all 3 phases of the game. He's a coach who understands that championships are won in the margins, that the little things add up over the course of a season, and that you can't afford to give away advantages in any area. By bringing Summers onto the active roster, Campbell is sending a message to the team that special teams execution matters, that everyone needs to step up their game, and that the coaching staff is going to put players on the field who can be trusted to do their jobs. It's also a message to the locker room that the staff is paying attention, that they're making adjustments based on what they see on film, and that nobody's job is safe if they're not performing up to standard. From a pure football perspective, having Summers available gives the Lions more options in terms of personnel packages and special teams units. He's a guy who can play multiple roles, who understands leverage and gap integrity, and who brings a level of professionalism and experience that you want on coverage teams. He's not going to be a star. He's probably not going to make the Pro Bowl, but he's exactly the kind of player who helps winning teams win close games. And in the NFC this year, where the margin between the top teams is razor thin, where the difference between hosting a playoff game and playing on the road could come down to a single win or loss, these kinds of moves matter more than people realize. I'm genuinely optimistic about what this addition means for our team. It shows that the coaching staff is being proactive rather than reactive, that they're not content to just hope things get better on their own, and that they're willing to make moves to address weaknesses even if they're not the splashy, headline-grabbing transactions that casual fans get excited about. This is how championship organizations operate. They identify problems, they find solutions, and they execute with precision and purpose. Tai Summers might not be a household name, but if he helps us win field position battles, if he makes a key tackle on a kickoff return, if he does his job consistently and allows our stars to shine, then this move will have been worth it. Looking ahead to the rest of the season, I expect the Lions to continue making these kinds of calculated roster moves as we navigate injuries, evaluate performance, and position ourselves for a playoff run. We've got the talent to compete with anybody in the NFC, we've got a coaching staff that knows how to prepare and adjust, and we've got a fan base that's hungrier than ever to see this team bring a championship to Detroit. Moves like signing Tai Summers might seem small in the moment, but they're part of a larger strategy of building a complete team that can win in multiple ways and overcome adversity when it inevitably strikes. Before I wrap this up, I really want to hear from you, Lions faithful. What do you think about the decision to bring Tai Summers back to the active roster? Do you believe this addresses the special teams issues we saw against Minnesota? Or do you think we need more significant changes? How confident are you in the Lions' ability to bounce back against Washington and get back on track toward our playoff goals? Drop all your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, because I love hearing from the best fan base in the NFL and having these conversations with you all. And if you want to stay on top of every Lions move, every roster decision, and every piece of breaking news as we push toward the playoffs, make sure you're subscribed to Lions News Fan Report and hit that notification bell. I'll be bringing you updates the moment anything happens, along with detailed analysis and insights you won't find anywhere else. This is your home for everything Detroit Lions, and I'm committed to keeping you informed and engaged throughout this entire season and beyond. One pride, Lions fans, and I'll see you in the next video.